I'm gonna ask everyone to have a little bit of patience. We're learning about a topic that, arguably speaking, is widely vast. It has many different facets. There's pieces and applications that realistically, realistically could be an application from a standpoint of figuring out a way to do your job and your day-to-day more efficiently, to what I've seen, launching rockets using quantum computing and agentic systems. It's a wide gambit. So have patience as you're learning and we're talking through this. I acknowledge that on the agenda for the meetup, we have from now until 6:15, and then there's some Q&A time. There's a lot to go through. So if, say, for example, you have questions, I'm going to flash up on the screen here the agenda. If you can stick around for the longer part, awesome. If you have to dip out because you have family commitments, totally understand. But we're just trying to make this a little bit more interactive for these sessions. We typically have this more of like a classroom style. We want you all to be engaged and having a good time here. So a little bit of change of pace, but hopefully that's okay for folks. And again, I won't be offended if you get up and you have to go pick up your kids or whatever the case might be. Totally fair. We're all human. As far as the agenda for today, so we're going to talk a little bit about the current state of AI. AI, agentic AI, traditional AI, for those that know what that is. Whoop, whoop. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Machine learning. Yeah, perfect. There we go. We got one person. Awesome. Thank you. We got two. I was going to say, where's the cabin folks? Anyways. So we'll be talking a little bit about agentic AI in general as it currently stands. The other piece that we're going to be talking through is a demo. So I know you all probably saw hands-on keyboard. So who here has done a live demo before? Okay. How many times have you done a live demo and something goes wrong? Yeah, that's what happened today. So fantastic. I was up, got an email from the system, said, your system has been shut down. I was like, cool, that's not great. Couldn't figure it out. Claude coded all my way through it, still couldn't figure it out. So we're gonna do a little bit of a different play, but I'm still gonna let you go into the environment. All I'm gonna ask is that piece around patience. So it's functional, it has like 48 cores assigned to it, but it's just a little wonky is the best way to put this. The next piece we'll go through is a little bit of a team activity. You all are arranged by tables. I appreciate that we have gregarious individuals that are coming together and are actually sitting down at a table and looking to interact with each other. Couches count two. Turning, you can turn. This is a table. There's technically a table right here. If you can't see it, feel free to engage. So we'll do a little bit of a table activity, and it's a little bit modified because we don't have an agentic environment that is functioning to the extent that I would like it to. So just that element, and then the last piece is kind of a closeout. I want to hear about your experience today. And so with that, here we go. Okay, you know what? I probably should have started here, but anyways. With that, you will see a little tiny QR code. It pulls up a Mentimeter for those that are familiar with that. You guys can go through and answer questions. You can put in Q&A as you like. If we don't get to certain questions, I'm going to leave time during the sections to ask questions. If you want to stay afterwards, you're also more than welcome to come talk to me. I'll be here relatively all night. So yeah, stay engaged, active participation. I hope you will have fun and ask questions, okay? Thumbs up, cool. I will ask questions of you, so get ready. Very much focused on that. Alrighty, so the other thing that I want is, I want the cabin folks to stretch up your hands, because I now acknowledge that some of you all are sitting at tables. Steph, you have a higher hand, come on. There we go, okay, I'm the one that has an excuse. Okay, so your cabin folks here are at your tables. They're there to help facilitate, answer questions, and be engaged in the conversation. We have folks from a wide variety of backgrounds. We have sales folks, we have our technical folks, we have individuals that are involved with strategy. I will be floating around during the team activity, so if you have something that's more technical, like, hey, why is Langflow broken? I will take that to the GitHub repository and find out later. The general gist is, feel free to engage with your larger cabin community. We'll welcome you into the cabin environment. This is a home for us. We want this to be a home for you to ask questions, feel comfortable, and engage with us, okay? So thank you to the cabin folks that are sitting at the tables. Yeah. Alrighty, so the state of AI today. I try to remind myself that I don't want this to sound so gloomy, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, that sounds like the state of AI today, Terminators tomorrow. So general gist around AI as it matters, and hopefully I'm not blocking too much. Hopefully everyone here has heard of machine learning, or in some capacity. Elements of what would be traditional AI and this idea of doing basically statistical analysis on huge server racks is what effectively is this idea of the traditional machine learning model. When you hear AI today, I hear everything from I would like a crystal ball, which is like, cool, me too, all the way to I'm looking to build out some type of correlative model to understand how students are coming into our education system. The gambit around how wide it is and how far it goes is ultimately around the fact that we have different definitions of what AI is. AI is not just one thing, it's a multitude of things. And really, this is like a sliver of a sliver if you think about it, because it's a range. It's not just these three categories. We just have these three categories to codify it and make it make more sense. So we have traditional AI. Those are the ones that realistically, they're the behind the scenes. Most people, unless you've been a data scientist or you've been in like a data environment, you probably haven't engaged necessarily with a machine learning model. Granted, some companies really advance and they're fantastic and they have people seeing the outputs of it, but they may not necessarily do any type of the coding work. What is the more generative aspect? So generative, it is the AI that came out around the 2023, late 2023. ChatGPT made this famous. We have Claude now, and to be fair, all of these different LLM programs and providers, arguably speaking, have different types of components of AIs that they're producing. But generative AI is the one where you provided an input, it provides you an output. Sometimes it's a goofy Disney picture. Sometimes it's a resume that you want to have, maybe firmed up a little. Sometimes it's an article. That is the scope of generative AI. And then we get to the fun one, agentic AI. So agentic AI in the general gist is, unlike traditional AI, I would say most of us have actually probably had some degree of engagement in a capacity. It's actually, you'll find a lot of, there's two types of generative AI, or agentic AI. There is deterministic and non-deterministic. Anyone's owned something that has like lane keeping assist in their car? Yeah? Okay. Or knows somebody who has them. That's going to be an example of your non-deterministic AI. It's autonomous vision capabilities. Some of those things around building out an understanding of how an AI ingests that information is partially an element of machine learning and vision learning, but it's turned into an AI conducting another set of AIs to function, to do a problem, and then producing some type of action or orientation. So in the case of self-driving car, they keep you inside your lanes. Maybe they tell you about a braking situation. It's the deterministic piece that most people probably haven't had some degree of engagement with yet. It's starting to roll out in your enterprises now, but it's not necessarily all about. A good example of this might be somebody might have access to Copilot Studio at work. You might have an AI that maybe helps you with your HR systems or a ticketing system. It's an AI that basically is managing a bunch of other AIs, and that AI happens to be doing some type of activity on your behalf. It doesn't necessarily need the same level of guidance that a generative AI would need, but it's relatively moving through an autonomous pace, and I'm going to say autonomous with quotes here, autonomous pace to build out your framework, whatever it is that you're trying to do. A lot of things we've seen lately have been around the automation and the agentic factors of your back office, so HR, IT, research management, recruiting, stuff like that. Those are the AIs that sometimes people are worried about them taking their jobs. The one thing I'll note with that is AI is coming. There's no way getting around it. It's really been around for quite a while now. They're coming into your offices now. The big piece is thinking about how do you work with the agentic force that is coming in. It is, if you want to personify and think about it as a department of people, you can. That's effectively what an agentic AI is, or an agentic AI foundation. But you don't necessarily have to be afraid of it. It's better to work with that type of change, because otherwise you'll get left behind, just like the people who didn't want to adopt internet or AOL. So that's my 2 cents on that. Any questions on this, or any call outs around where you're potentially seeing stuff like that? Cool. My goal is to get you all chatting, moving, excited. If I'm up here, you all have to have engagement. So yeah. Alrighty.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's that QR code?
Oh, so the QR code follows you all the way around in case you still want to keep asking questions throughout, and also provide feedback. So it's the same Menti thing from before, just on all the slides, because apparently I'm blocking the way for a lot of people. So there's that.
I have a question, Bob. In terms of guidance on how to, let's just say, work with AI.
Yeah.
What does it mean today in practice?
Yeah.
What thing we all can do in the next week or tomorrow to be on the path towards working with AI?
So I think a good piece around that is an element of adoption and experimentation. You all are getting access to an environment. We're intending for you all to be active listeners, but also active applicants of AI in some capacity, especially the agentic frameworks. I would say finding ways to leverage something that you do that is some degree of tedious for you, that has different types of steps as you work through the process. I'm assuming everyone here has potentially heard of what OpenClaw is, yeah? More or less, it's a big buzzword thing, and buzzword bingo is my favorite game to play. So the reality is, those types of tools like OpenClaw are allowing for consumers that don't necessarily have to have a server in their basement or backyard or whatever to build out and use agentic solutions on your home computer. You can go out and buy a Mac Mini that's like 4 years old and run it on there, and it can automate your SEO if you happen to want to write a blog, or it can go through and do the marketing material for you. It can help you automate doctor's appointments, because I hate calling into doctor's offices. And it can do all those things for you. It's a matter of basically setting up like a mini team for how you do your work. Cool? All right. All right, so I forgot about this. Cool. So this is a really good example of what does agentic AI look like. And I'm going to click through these because I'm already behind on time. Get a second. All right, so the first example is the old-fashioned way. Who here hates doing traveling or traveling for events or trips, especially for work? I know I don't necessarily love it. Granted, here at Cabin, we are a little bit smarter about how we use things. But in my previous roles, I was not a huge fan. You would sometimes have to go in and find your calendar, identify what you're trying to travel to, or where you're trying to travel to, figure out what hotel you need to get, identify what plane tickets and policy, all these different things. I'm not going to say the company name that you potentially had to work with, but those are different things that you probably had to go through and do so that you could just book a trip. It's a pain in the butt. What happens when a flight gets canceled? Or the TSA line is crazy long, or you missed your flight for whatever the reason, the connection's too short. You are accountable for fixing your own problems because you were the one that booked it and scheduled it. And for some reason, certain application platforms haven't realized that they maybe should build agentic AI into their actual framework. The alternative is to be working with an agentic buddy. So instead of having you go through and work on building out all of your itinerary, identifying when you can travel, figuring out if you should cancel meetings, let people know you're out of the office, on a plane, or whatever the case might be, agentic AIs can have the capacity to work not only with you and help you identify what are your preferences for seats, where you want to fly to, if you want to have a layover, but also go through and engage with the tools that you would typically click through to enable you to actually have that in your calendar, have the itinerary ready to go. In a particular case study that I myself and my team have gone through was looking at how does this ultimately flow into a solution, and there's ways to build it out for all of you here. You don't necessarily have to have a server. You don't have to have data science capabilities or know how to do APIs. It's a matter of being able to leverage the tools that are available today. Could be OpenClaw. In my case, like I said, I don't love calling to the doctor's office, so I have a tool that will call in for the doctor's office for me and schedule all my appointments looking at my calendar. It's a matter of going through and thinking about how to use those agentic workflows and really kind of identifying the paths that you want it to do and then letting the AI do what it knows to do because it can think in a generative capacity because it's based off of that generative technology. So kind of a fun example. I realize that this may not hit with a lot of people because some people may not use that particular platform, but I will note that it is a pain in the butt and it also saves a bunch of time when you actually implement this correctly. So yeah. And I'll also get back to it in a second. So what does this look like under the hood? This is your agentic workforce, effectively. So specifically, let me see if I can actually do this. Oh, maybe. Cool. All right, so, nope, okay, A for effort. So when it comes to what is going on under the hood in an agentic system, your typical process for what is your typical generative agent, it's you and the agent. You're having a conversation with a model that has basically a layer, a UI on top of it where you can drop in pictures and you can drop in context and documents and stuff like that. When you have an agentic AI, there is commonly what is referred to as either a knowledge manager or a supervising manager over the overall experience. It's an agent that has the primary communication with you because we're at the end of the day trying to save money. It is designed to basically have those more natural conversations, and the AIs that sit underneath it are usually a little bit more specific for a particular role or task. So in the scenario where we're thinking about building out travel plans, you would engage with a supervising agent. That agent would take in, again, information that it knows about you, potentially stuff from a memory, a conversation that's had with you in the past, maybe information from a profile that your company had supplied or that you had worked on. And it will build out basically tasks for all the other agents on its team. So this is where you hear a lot of people saying, like, we have this new digital workforce. That's kind of what this is. You have your manager that tells all the supervisors or the analysts what to do. They report back, and then they provide it to their executive. Best part, you get to be the executive. So this is kind of how this agentic workforce is starting to be built out, and you'll see it a lot in enterprises. In previous roles, I've seen this rolled out in HR, where you would have something like, I would get a proactive notification that somebody at my company or my team has been there for 3 years, they're about due for a promotion. Would I like to know if they're ready to be eligible for a promotion based off different criteria? It would go through and engage with different agents that are focused on identifying, what's their tenure like? What have been their performance reviews? Have they been coming into the office regularly, because return to office is so critical? Going through and identifying what is their salary? Is it able to be adjusted based within their current range? Should they just get a pay bump, or should they actually get a full-on promotion? When I go through and look at that information in like a unified dashboard almost, in that particular scenario, I was able to see, okay, this person's definitely ready for a promotion. They've been underpaid for way too long. Maybe we should give them a little bit of an elevated bump. That's an opportunity for me to make a smart decision with data and AI, but it was fed to me from an agentic solution because it knew that I was a manager, that I had people underneath me that had been at their role for too long, were probably getting underpaid, and then I had an opportunity to just say, yes, promote based off of the criteria that I'm seeing, and it would push out someone notification, put them into the queue to be approved by our supervisors, and then that process was completely created, where you had an agent going through and doing a lot of that work for you. I had a team of HR persons on my team, on my virtual team, that I didn't have to be accountable for. I didn't have to know that they were trained, that they knew how to hire or do recruiting. It was managed as a service, much like how a lot of you probably have BI, business intelligence suites in your corporate role. That stuff is managed by a central team. I don't have to worry about what's going on. What I get out of the end of it is an experience where I just push a couple of buttons and I'm able to do my job better. Cool? Fun? I'll note that this is an HR example. This is the one that everyone gets super freaked out about. Oh, you don't want to be that guy that's in the back. It's going to take our jobs. Yeah, so did AOL. Like, calm down, you guys. The reality is, if you know how to work with an agentic solution, if you know what are the pieces that you're functioning through, and what are the elements of the layers of effect effectively, who's being affected by the AI itself, if you're building one out or if you're working with one, that is a huge component about thinking about the adoption of these types of agentic solutions. We'll get into that as part of the table activity, okay? Cool. Oh gosh, I'm losing my voice. Can't do that. All right, so I got a cool example for you all, and I'm curious if it shows up well. It does not, but you can pretend you can see a dashboard. How about that? So we had a particular client that was going through a bunch of acquisitions. They had basically acquired a bunch of brands. They were in kind of like the, it wasn't telecom, it was telecom and entertainment space. Bunch of acquisitions. They had a particular problem in that their CS reps had no way of going through and knowing all the brands, all the things that were inside their portfolio. Their job had become ridiculously painful because they had screens on every page. So there were people that were requesting 3 monitors for some odd reason. There was so much going on in their day-to-day that they were becoming burnt out. Their turnover was going up. We ended up looking at what would it look like to build out an agentic solution that wasn't just giving them data. Business intelligence, like who cares? That's what, 2020s, 2010s. It was building out a prescriptive way of giving them information using a team of agents that understood the full context and was managed by a primary knowledge agent, and then also produced a really cute, pretty dashboard. The intention was, instead of having a bunch of screens and looking at, again, 3 monitors, like who wants that neck crane? You're just going to get like carpal tunnel or I don't know, one of these. The end result was having a central point for the team to look at and understand the experience. When a customer called in, they were able to see at quick glance, what exactly was the last time they called in? What was the intention? Did they have a resolution? They were able to very quickly see in the conversation that they had. So in this particular scenario, it was a 9-minute conversation, and that sounds like not a great experience for me as somebody who avoids calling in to telephone lines. what was going on in the call. The elements of natural language processing, which would be more of an element of kind of generative, a little bit of traditional though, model would basically go through and analyze what is the sentiment that somebody is having with this AI or with this customer service rep as an AI is in the background checking on things. And as the particular individual, in this case at the Sarah was having her experience, she was getting a little bit agitated, cantankerous. She had problems that were unresolved. The AI was able to pick up on that, so that the sentiment was trending down, and then was able to populate different types of trials based off of their particular, based on their particular profile, and make recommendations like, hey, maybe you should try this particular package. We'll give it to you for 30 days free. I acknowledge that you still are having a problem with connecting to the internet or getting access to your package. It's a huge, fantastic way to give people knowledge without necessarily having them have to become a database admin or know how to run SQL or have 20 dashboards open on their screen. This is what Agentic AI is going to bring the future. It's going to give you the information you need to do the parts of your job that you love. It's an element of governance at the end of the day, and responsible and trustworthiness around your AIs. As an enterprise, I'm hoping to God that every company is doing this. And if they're not, those are the ones that are going to be letting Terminators loose in their office, is all I have to say about that. On a personal note, if you have an OpenClaw server that you've set up, and if you have it doing something like your banking, or having it figure out your doctor's situation, that is a risk bit I am willing to let you take. I don't necessarily take it myself. I know what all OpenClaw is, I work with it, I have it on my machines, but I don't necessarily let it do big ticket items that potentially have a long-term impact on me without going through and vetting and making sure that I understand the scope by which it's making changes to my life. The same thing should be true of organizations that are adopting Agentic AI. To be fair, if they are doing the right thing, if they are checking their AIs, making sure that they are doing responsible checks, that they are moderating, that they're understanding how the AIs are engaging with each other, how that central boss AI is giving information to its plebes, then in theory, they are doing elements of human in the loop because there would have been a testing protocol that they would have gone through and done to make sure that there weren't anything crazy going on. I got a really fun example of where that didn't go well. Again, HR. This is not at Cabin. This was a personal experience that I worked with a vendor that had done this. They had an AI that was an HR system. It was for the purposes of putting in your PTO faster. So you just type to the agent, hey, I'm thinking about going on vacation. They did not do any type of extensive testing, or they claimed they did and they didn't. The AI started to get a little bit personable. In a bad way. It would ask things like, oh, where are you planning on going vacation? Okay, well, that's kind of weird. I'm planning on going to Boca Raton, whatever. Oh, okay, cool. Are you planning on engaging in any activities? Yeah, but like, why does it matter to you? It got to the point where sometimes it was asking like really personal information to the point where people were like, HR, this is weird and I'm not talking to this thing anymore. The funny thing was that the intention around the AI, the prompt that they were using to basically streamline the process was get as much information so that you can know what type of benefits to offer somebody who is traveling, that we have a car program, we have different insurance that we can offer. The intention was to find out more about why you were taking your PTO so that they could give a wider package to you as part of their employee benefits. It wasn't to spy on you, but they didn't provide the right level of governance to it. And they just kind of did a prod release and everyone was like, yeah, this is creepy as sin. I'm not messing with this. You don't want to have that happen. So I would argue that part of it is around building it with intention. I used to do a lot of work with like building out like proofs of concept, basically, like in mass, like 70 of them in a year kind of thing. A lot of the things that went into building out those particular proofs of concepts were focusing in around mapping how we wanted the AI to function, what we wanted it to solve for, what we wanted it to do. The other piece around it is ensuring that you have a proper AI DevOps lifecycle. So much like you would have a DevOps lifecycle, we now have AI DevOps. The intention around that is testing it through all of its various gating processes, making sure that it's getting the right access to the data, that it's not making changes or making weird patterns. The other piece around this, and I was actually talking with somebody earlier about this, is with Agentic AI, especially generative engines that are not just doing tasks, there's still an element of like this black box, basically. We understand how they're developing their central understanding, their corpus of information, because it's scanned through the internet. We understand that we were providing some degree of input and it's getting some degree of output. It's not a traditional LLM, so it doesn't have like a correlative effect necessarily, but we were able to see with input, out comes output, and these are the results that we're getting over a wide spread. That's a lot of data. It's a lot of data. You have an agentic HR system and you have 300,000 people in your company. Say if they just hit it once in a month, you got a lot of things to sift through. So what's happening now is, on top of doing, designing with intent, there's also agentic solutions that are being built out where other AIs are governing the output of those AIs and looking at it in mass. What is the upper and lower control limits around the ways that responses are being built out? The other piece around this is also the data itself, making sure that it's not using garbage data. But to be fair, I think everyone's heard that like 20 times. What you've done before will potentially influence what you do next, which is going to influence what you do after that. With what is effectively AI and agentic AI, it's built on the foundation of data. It's built on the foundation of processes. If you have bad processes, you have bad data, you're going to have bad outcomes with your proofs of concept. That's one of like the foundational things. The other thing is, a lot of companies have like, couch money that's sitting around on like building an AI solution. Their goal is to invest AI into their company. And they're buying a tool, they're getting some type of voice agent, and they don't really have a full intention around it. They're just trying to spend the money because maybe it's, buy one, get one free, it's whatever the case might be. They have something that they have to do with it. Building with intention is the first part of it. I'd say the other piece is also building out literacy within your organization, understanding of how this is going to change, ideally for the better, especially if it's built with well intention, and how you can adopt this. You all are taking part in upping your literacy of AI right here, right now, because you're learning about AI, agentic AI. Maybe it's not necessarily in the full capacity you wanted to, because you were expecting by now that I would have shut up and that you would have had your hands on your keyboard. I'm getting to that, I promise. The piece that is going to happen is building out a sense of experimentation in a realm where people feel comfortable. Turning on AI and letting people play with Copilot and Gemini and whatever heck else the people are. Eva is another fun one I've heard a lot about. Building a solution that people can feel comfortable experimenting in is also going to bring up adoption and bring up this sense of literacy. People that, I'm going to keep using the internet example because it's the one that I'm most familiar with as a millennial. If you don't take on the new technology and invest it in your own personal sense, you will fall behind. Agentic AI wasn't a thing. I mean, it was, but it was like, and it was in research labs and like, the super cool people were talking about it. Agentic AI wasn't a thing 6 to 7 months ago. Generative AI, when it came out in 2023, somebody wrote a paper about it 2 years before, but it was, it's this cool idea. It would be really great if AIs could just tell me what to do with my data, as opposed to having to go through and actually build out like the script of analysis. And before that, people were doing statistics on their, on their giant mainframes and whatever those calculator things are. You're looking at basically Moore's law accelerated. You have to be adaptable and work with it. Most organizations probably have an inkling around what their data is. I think a good example of whether or not if you have good data or bad data is if you think about the non-digital aspect of your company. So what is a data representation of your company? It is effectively your physical company represented in all of its processes and procedures and systems and blah, blah, blahs, put into a quantitative fashion for the most part. There are obviously some things that can't be quantitated. If your processes are bad, odds are your data is probably bad. If you have 20 different screens up, if what is the JP Morgan building where they got 6 different screens, if that's a different scenario, they're sifting through a lot of data. But if you have something like that set up and you're having to click through 10 different systems, and for some reason you have write access to a system of record, odds are your data is not great. You're probably causing your own problems a lot of times. And that's something that we come in and do is we look at, okay, let's talk about a process. Let's try to bite a chunk out of the whale itself. Because realistically, who really knows from a grand scheme of things unless you go in and start to investigate or you leverage AI tools to help accelerate the data discovery process, making sure that you're maintaining your governance. You'll also sometimes hear master data management is the other word. Taxonomy, there's all these fun ones. Buzzword bingo. I've been a consultant for 14 years. I could go through the ramble of it. The general gist is it's an element of, it's your governance and it's an element of what is your actual corporate footprint look like, and understanding what those processes look like. So with that said, I'm gonna do a little bit of skipping, but I promise it's not crazy good content. It was doubling down content. So who doesn't want to hear me double down for another 30 minutes, right? I touched about governance. I'm just gonna throw out the note here, layers of impact. When you build an AI solution, if you're ever part of an AI DevOps lifecycle, think about not just who your primary target is, but also the layers of impact associated. Who's gonna be a secondary person from a negative or a positive layer of impact or effect? It's gonna be valuable in a second. Alrighty, I will let you all take a picture of this because I feel like there's super nerdy people that wanna take a picture. I'll move off to the side. So this is gonna be really quick. What is powering Agentic AI? It's a lot of things. I'm sure somebody has seen one of those eye charts where you click on it and all of a sudden there's like 10 different images in marketing and generative engine optimization and solutioning and BI and all this other stuff. It's a constantly growing landscape. I'd say the big piece around this is the left-hand side. What is the foundation made up in most enterprises? I'd say if you're building your own OpenClaw, you probably don't need every single one of these. I would note, at your own risk kind of thing. I'm not advocating for letting it run wild on your portfolio or your 401k, but it's an element of getting the right fit for your company and your organization. Color coded for the purposes of matching. You can Google all of these things. A lot of them have fun DevOps names because of course the people that built this are all super nerdy. That's my little fun note there. All right, I'm gonna do 2 of these and then skip through. Reality, Gartner, everyone's predicting Agentic AI will be huge. $52 billion industry by 2030. Most companies are looking to scale this up rapidly. Once they get their first proof of concept, their proof of value done, they see value in this, they are gonna rapidly scale it up. I was at an organization or consulting for an organization that did, like I said, 75 proofs of concept in a year. Of those 75, 25% of them went in production in the first year. The second year, they were at 50%. Scaling up in a big way is going to continue to happen with Agentic AI because generative AI helps you create cool documents and PDFs and clip art about your boss that you don't like or whatever the case might be. It's the Agentic AI is the power that we're going to have out of this. We're not at the point where it's doing super intelligence work necessarily, or at least not in the standard consumer market. But we are getting to a point where this is going to build and make you and your team thousands of times more effective than hiring 10 more people. So companies are seeing the value around that. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be evangelized. The piece that's kind of interesting of note here is around where AI is starting to be employed. Really good question. Anyone a Westworld fan? Oh, yay. This is awesome. Where have you guys been? Wait, Chase? Really? Okay, I'm done. Anyways, anyone remember Rehoboth? Yeah, okay. So digital footprint of your digital self. A lot of AI is being built out for the purposes of identifying your digital footprint and identifying ways to do predictive factors on you from a standpoint of insurance, figuring out how much longer you're gonna live, from a standpoint of healthcare, how to manage you in a clinical service or a trial, from a standpoint of retail, where you are within their store based off different factors associated with your information. I'm sure people have probably heard like the diapers, not experiment, but diapers example. This was back in like 2017, but basically a daughter had gone into Target and she started getting information about diapers and baby wipes and stuff like that. The algorithm that Target was using was able to, identify that this guy's daughter was pregnant. He called up Target, was like, hey, why are you sending these like weird things to my kid? Turns out that she was pregnant and the algorithm knew this information. That was 2017. So 10 years ago, they were able to do that. I guarantee you they could do a lot cooler things. We just haven't seen it come to market yet. General gist is AI is being leveraged to map you so that it could be then find a way to build out products that could either market to you or save companies that are servicing you money so that they don't have to pay you out in some capacity. It's not a bad thing in all realms. Ideally, again, leveraging trustworthy governance, all that jazz. The piece that I'll note is the ones that are highlighted in orange are things that we've already had conversations with customers about. These are real things that they're talking through. They may not have the proof of concept built out yet, or they don't have a vision of what they want to enable, but these are real things that are happening that I've personally seen. And to be fair, you all probably have seen similar examples in your day-to-day. The algorithms that are in your social media could probably run your life better than you. They just haven't unleashed it yet. And also probably scare the crap out of a bunch of people. Too many Westworld fans, I guess. All right, so guess what? Yeah, we're feeling it. Okay, I feel like this is gonna be a little bit of a letdown, but we'll see. So for those of you that are familiar with N8N, maybe. Meh. Yes, maybe so. Okay. Think Zapier, but on roids is probably the best way to put it. Zapier is an automation tool. It has the ability to work with agentic AIs. This was built out, believe it or not, with an agentic AI because I had to scramble to pull this together. So what this is a simulation of the travel agent experience that we had talked about. What's going on is there's a chat interface. It's using memory. It's working with this primary knowledge manager to do a particular task. If I click into this, you can see that this is an AI agent that was given a bunch of information about how it should perform its job. It's a prompt, pretty straightforward, pretty standard. This agent will then engage with a bunch of tools, make a bunch of decisions, and then we'll go through and do things like schedule times on my calendar and give me an agenda and search flights. I did tell it not to schedule anything, but it definitely could have done it because I didn't feel like paying for stuff. And anyways, so the way this looks is you have like this cute little chat interface right here. So I'm just going to click the pop-out panel. And we're just going to see what the experience looks like. What I really like about N8N, and this is not me selling AAN, but this is what I like about it, is you can see what's going on in the background as you type in things. So I am looking to take a trip to San Fran. April? Charlotte. Alrighty, so cool. This is what I love. What's going on here today? Oh, you know what? Hang on. If this doesn't work, I will send you all the recording or something. Okay, this might be fun. Let me jump into the other one then. I'll show you that. So it would have gone through and done a process, and of course it's not working right now, so catch me on YouTube later on tonight, I guess. The other option would have been a Langflow. So Langflow was the original intended target for you all to play around with. Langflow is a UI tool, pretty straightforward. You jump in basically and go to new flow here, for example, and I'm gonna pull up a very simple one, basic prompting. You go through, you provide it with inputs. It has a primary knowledge manager, be it an LLM, be it some type of composer, and it goes through and does a bunch of processes and steps for you. As far as kind of the activity around this is, you can pull in literally any component you could think of. You can make your own. If you happen to be good at Python coding, you can do it yourself. These are kind of tools for individuals that don't necessarily know how to do coding themselves that could go through and build out an agentic flow, build a model, a primary supervisor, and enable this. To be fair, Langflow and N8N and Vappy is more voice-based. Zapier are used by large enterprises. They're probably using them in a more point solution, but you'll see them, and especially in the technical architecture diagram, you'll see them mentioned. There's other comparable tools, like there's the Azure Data Studio or AI Studio. Watson X basically does all of this. They're different enterprise-grade tools, but you can also leverage these for yourself and your personal self. Next time I will have a recording, and you all will just see the magic post. But yeah, this is just kind of a good way to kind of see how this functions. Again, you can bring in different models, different agents, files, the guardrails around how you want this particular agent to function, checking out for, making sure that there's no PII or offensive material, build out different flows, help it do understanding of processing. Gambit is wild. It's an open source tool. So is N8N. Technically, N8N has a commercial license, but they're both open source. A lot of the work that you're seeing now and building out these systems are going open source. The intention around that is it's growing. It's a vast community. They can't just build it by themselves. So they're going to take advantage of the open source community, and then they'll commercialize it after the fact. So might as well get in while you can. So that's the general gist of how these work and how these function. Let me see here. I'm kind of annoyed. I'm hoping this will work if I just hit refresh or something. Yes, I will actually pull it up. So this one is N8N, so it's N8N.com. And then the other one is Langflow, LANGFLOW.org. I think it's an org. Yeah, they're all part of different kind of Lang associated. It's basically a protocol. Let me give it one more whirl. I probably should have saved it too from the, come on. Again, patience. I am right-handed, so this is super fun for me. Yeah, cool. All right, fun. Love when that happens. This one worked earlier. I'm just gonna throw that out. Alrighty, so it would have gone through, done the scheduling. It would have asked me basically, hey, where are you traveling to? What are your trips? What are your plans? Where are you staying? And then it would have given me recommendations, given me my flight numbers, booked the event on my calendar based off of my availability. And then in a scenario where, say, for example, this is actually hooked into something and it's buying, making purchases, it would have processed credit card transactions, stuff like that. In my personal example, I don't like calling into doctor's offices. I hate being on phone trees, all that jazz. So I have an AI agent that will do an outbound call based off of a text that I send it. So I would say N8N is probably more consumer-based. Again, they have enterprise-grade versions, and I know of companies that, like, maybe not Fortune 500, but I'd say very profitable entities that you've known of that use these as part of their day-to-day. The piece that's kind of nice about N8N for Langflow when they work is the fact that they have a pretty GUI, a general user interface. You don't necessarily have to be a Python developer to set them up. General user. Thank you. So the piece around this is you're using it to kind of get a group of individuals up to speed on how to build out an agentic solution without having to become a developer. That's really the fit for this for the most part. But again, I know of 2 companies off the top of my head right now that are using it from an enterprise standpoint to manage things like healthcare data. So it is viable to use it. It's just also accessible for you all in the room. You don't have to be a multi-billion-dollar company or $1 million company to use these. The UI itself is also the big selling point. And I'd also argue from a standpoint of feeling like you want to experiment, maybe like cancel like your Hulu Plus for one night or 1 month and spend it on N8N and figure out if you like using agentic solutions. It's pretty affordable. I think it's like $5 for N8N, and Zapier is a different story. And Langflow is free. You can actually install it on your desktop and use your computer as a server, which also is probably its own YouTube video. All right. So what we got as the last activity was kind of talking through agentic with your cabin folks at the table. And I love that I was able to show you absolutely nothing from these environments. I am no longer, I won't diss I do like N8N because, I use it, but it would have been cool one day soon, maybe next time. I'll note that, let's see here if it pops up. Can I do this? Nope. Hang on. I don't know where my window went. That's fun. Here it is. Those are the pictures, by the way, of the things. If you guys want, you're more than welcome to go in and play around with our Langflow environment, but I will be turning it off in probably 2 hours. So you got a little bit of a window to wreak havoc and rack up my Claude API or whatever. So that's kind of the element around that. So now we kind of want to do a tables on activity, and hence the reason why you guys are engaged with each other. I would say, we learned a little bit about what is agentic. We learned a little bit about what exactly is going on in the world. This is kind of an opportunity to just kind of think with the people at the table with you. And again, I acknowledge that this might be going a little bit longer than you anticipated. I know I'm talking longer than I anticipated. So, feel free to get engaged to the extent that you want to. Like I said, I'll be here all night. But, we'll just kind of break out for 15, 20 minutes or so, and, we'll talk about what you guys felt. All right, thank you all. Again, thank you, yeah.